For 3 decades, the YF-23 Black Widow has gathered dust in museums while adversaries slept easy. But whispers from defense corridors suggest this ghost from the Cold War era might rise again. What if America's most underestimated aircraft could become its most feared weapon? The YF-23 story isn't over. It's just beginning. If you're fascinated by cutting-edge military technology and want to stay ahead of defense news, hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you never miss our next breakdown of tomorrow's weapons today. In the shadowy world of advanced military aviation, few stories are as compelling as that of the aircraft that almost was. The year was 1991, and the United States Air Force stood at a crossroads. The Cold War was ending, but the need for air superiority had never been more critical. Two revolutionary aircraft competed for the future of American air dominance: Lockheed's YF-22 and Northrop Grumman's YF-23. The YF-23 wasn't just another fighter jet proposal. Built by Northrop Grumman in partnership with McDonnell Douglas, this single-seat, twin-engine stealth fighter represented a quantum leap in aerospace engineering. Its mission was clear: replace the aging F-15 Eagle and establish American air superiority for generations to come. The design team poured everything into creating what many considered a masterpiece of aviation technology. But here's where the story takes an unexpected turn. Despite possessing superior capabilities in the areas that matter most in modern warfare, which is stealth and range, the YF-23 lost the competition. For 30 years, this engineering marvel has been relegated to museums, a what-if in aviation history, until now. Because in 2018, something extraordinary happened that nobody saw coming, and it has everything to do with a rising power in the Pacific. Japan's Air Self-Defense Force put out a call for partners to develop their next-generation fighter, and suddenly Northrop Grumman saw an opportunity to resurrect the ghost. Reports began circulating that the company was dusting off those decades-old YF-23 blueprints, preparing to offer Japan a modernized version of the super stealth jet that beat the Raptor where it counted most. The aircraft that lost in 1991 might get a second chance at glory, and America's adversaries were about to face a nightmare they thought they'd dodged. To understand why the YF-23's potential return sends shivers down the spines of military strategists worldwide, we need to travel back to the late 1980s. The Soviet Union had just unveiled two formidable fighters that shocked Western intelligence: the Su-27 and the MiG-29. These weren't the clunky Soviet aircraft of previous generations. These were sleek, capable, and dangerous. The United States Air Force realized that the F-15 Eagle, as dominant as it had been, would eventually face threats it wasn't designed to counter. Thus began the Advanced Tactical Fighter Program, or ATF, one of the most ambitious and secretive aircraft development competitions in history. The stakes couldn't have been higher. Whoever won would define air combat for the next 50 years. Two teams emerged as finalists. Lockheed Martin partnered with Boeing and General Dynamics to create the YF-22. Meanwhile, Northrop Grumman joined forces with McDonnell Douglas to build something that looked like it had flown straight out of science fiction: the YF-23. The YF-23 came in two versions, each with a nickname that would become legendary. The first prototype, PAV-1, was painted in a distinctive dark gray scheme and earned the name Black Widow II after the famous World War II night fighter. The second prototype, PAV-2, featured a lighter gray color and became known as the Gray Ghost. But these weren't just cool names, they represented something far more significant about the aircraft's primary advantage. The YF-23's design was revolutionary. Its diamond-shaped wings and extensive use of advanced composite materials created an aircraft with a radar cross-section even smaller than the YF-22. In the deadly game of stealth warfare, where being seen first means dying first, the YF-23 was practically invisible. The Black Widow and Gray Ghost weren't just nicknames, they were prophecies. This aircraft could haunt enemy airspace like a phantom, striking before adversaries even knew it was there. Now let's talk numbers and capabilities, because in the world of fighter aviation, sentiment doesn't matter, performance does. The YF-23 and YF-22 were tested rigorously throughout 1990 and 1991. Both aircraft had to demonstrate supercruise capabilities like sustained supersonic flight without afterburners. Both had to prove their stealth characteristics. Both had to show they could dominate in air-to-air combat. The Black Widow was powered by Pratt & Whitney's YF-119 engine, the same power plant that would eventually go into the F-22. The Gray Ghost received General Electric's YF-120 turbofan for comparative testing purposes. These weren't just any engines. They represented the cutting edge of propulsion technology, capable of pushing these aircraft to speeds and altitudes that would make enemy fighters look like they were standing still. When the dust settled and all the data was analyzed, something fascinating emerged. The YF-22 had a slight edge in top speed and maneuverability, particularly due to its innovative thrust vectoring system that allowed it to perform seemingly impossible aerial maneuvers. But the YF-23 dominated in two critical areas. First, stealth. The YF-23's all-aspect stealth profile was superior, meaning it was harder to detect from any angle, front, side, rear, above, or below. Second, range. The YF-23 could fly farther on the same amount of fuel, a capability that would become increasingly crucial in the vast expanses of the Pacific theater. So if the YF-23 was superior in these vital areas, why did it lose? The answer involves scandal, politics, and timing. Northrop Grumman had been embroiled in serious controversies during the 1970s and 1980s, including allegations of improper conduct and cost overruns on other programs. When it came time to make the final decision, the Air Force chose the YF-22. The official reasons cited maneuverability and the contractor's program management approach, but industry insiders have long suspected that Northrop's troubled recent history tipped the scales. The superior stealth aircraft lost, and the YF-23 seemed destined for museums and what-if discussions among aviation enthusiasts. Fast forward to the 2010s, and Japan faced a serious problem. The nation's F-2 fighter, while capable, was aging. Meanwhile, China was rapidly expanding its military capabilities, including the development of fifth-generation stealth fighters like the J-20. North Korea remained an unpredictable threat. Japan needed a next-generation fighter, and they needed it fast. The Japanese government's first choice was simple: buy the F-22 Raptor. It was proven, it was dominant, and it was American. But the United States Congress had other ideas. Concerned about protecting proprietary stealth technology and advanced avionics systems, Congress banned the export of the F-22 to any country, even close allies like Japan. The Raptor would remain exclusively American. This left Japan in a difficult position. They could develop an entirely indigenous fighter, which would be extraordinarily expensive and time-consuming. They could buy existing American aircraft that weren't quite cutting-edge enough, or they could find a creative solution. We're diving deep into the technologies that will define the next generation of warfare. Don't miss out, subscribe now, and join our community of defense enthusiasts who want to understand the weapon systems shaping our future. Now let's talk about Japan Air Self-Defense Forces FX program. The JASDF put out solicitations to international defense contractors seeking partners for what they called a fifth to sixth generation fighter aircraft. Multiple companies prepared proposals, but two stood out with offerings that would resurrect ghosts of the Advanced Tactical Fighter program. Lockheed Martin proposed a hybrid design combining elements of both the F-22 and F-35, essentially offering Japan the Raptor's capabilities in a new package. But Northrop Grumman went in a completely different direction. According to reports from defense industry insiders, they prepared to offer a modernized version of the YF-23, updated with 21st century avionics, sensors, and weapon systems. The Black Widow could fly again, this time under the Japanese flag and potentially in American colors as well. But what would a modernized YF-23 actually look like? This is where the story becomes tantalizing for military aviation enthusiasts and strategists alike. The basic airframe would retain its superior stealth characteristics, like that diamond wing design and composite construction, that made it virtually invisible to radar. But everything else would be brought into the 2020s. Modern avionics would replace the 1990s era systems. Advanced AESA radars capable of tracking hundreds of targets simultaneously would be integrated. New sensor fusion technology, similar to what makes the F-35 so effective, would give pilots unprecedented situational awareness. Modern engines could improve both performance and fuel efficiency. Advanced weapon systems, including hypersonic missiles and directed energy weapons, could be integrated. The result would be an aircraft combining 1990s stealth superiority with 2020s technology, potentially creating something more capable than even the current F-22 Raptor fleet. The YF-23's inherent advantages in stealth and range would be amplified by modern systems, creating what some analysts believe could be the ultimate fifth-generation plus fighter. But here's the crucial question. Why would Japan consider an aircraft based on 1990s technology when they could develop something entirely new? And more importantly, why did they ultimately reject it? Japan identified two fatal flaws in the YF-23 proposal. First, purchasing or licensing a design from an American company would require congressional approval, the same Congress that had already refused to sell them the F-22. The bureaucratic nightmare could delay the program for years. Second, despite the potential for modernization, the fundamental design was still from the 1990s. Japan wanted cutting-edge sixth-generation capabilities, not upgraded fifth-generation technology, no matter how good it was. Japan's rejection of the YF-23 proposal led to something perhaps even more significant than reviving a single aircraft design. On December 9, 2022, Japan made an announcement that would reshape the future of fighter aviation. They were joining forces with the United Kingdom and Italy to develop an entirely new sixth-generation fighter aircraft. The Global Combat Air Program, or GCAP, represents one of the most ambitious international defense collaborations in history. The UK and Italy would bring their Tempest program, while Japan would contribute its FX concepts. The result would be a fighter jet to replace the UK and Italy's Eurofighter Typhoon fleet and Japan's F-2 fighters by 2035. But this isn't just about building a new airplane. According to BAE Systems specifications, the GCAP fighter will feature capabilities that sound like science fiction. An advanced intelligent weapons system that can make decisions in milliseconds. A software-driven interactive cockpit that adapts to pilot preferences and mission requirements. Integrated sensors providing 360-degree awareness, and a next-generation radar system capable of processing 10,000 times more data than current systems. And the estimated cost, a staggering $40 billion split among three nations. But Kawada Tomohiro, GCAP's director at Japan's Acquisition, Technology and Logistics Agency, insists this is about more than just an aircraft. It's about relationships, about security partnerships that will last for generations. So with this massive international program underway, does the YF-23 story end here? Not necessarily. The YF-23's DNA might still influence future designs. Its revolutionary stealth characteristics, its efficient airframe design, and the lessons learned from its development remain relevant. Defense contractors don't throw away good ideas, they evolve them. Elements of the YF-23's design philosophy might appear in GCAP or in future American sixth-generation fighters. The Black Widow and Gray Ghost might never fly again in their original forms, but their legacy could define the next generation of air superiority. The YF-23 saga teaches us crucial lessons about defense procurement, international relations, and the long shadow cast by advanced technology. First, being the best doesn't always mean winning. The YF-23 was arguably superior in critical areas, but factors beyond pure performance, like corporate reputation, political considerations, program management determine the outcome. Second, nothing in defense aviation is ever truly dead. Designs can be resurrected, concepts can be revisited, and technology demonstrators can become operational aircraft decades after their first flight. The aerospace industry has a long memory and access to extensive archives of proven designs. Third, international collaboration is reshaping how advanced weapon systems are developed. The days of single nations bearing the entire cost and risk of developing next-generation fighters are ending. Programs like GCAP represent the future: shared costs, shared technology, shared strategic benefits. But the biggest question remains unanswered. What if circumstances change? What if the United States decides it needs a penetrating counter-air platform with longer range than the F-22 and different capabilities than the F-35? What if budget constraints make developing an entirely new design too expensive? Could the YF-23 rise from the ashes after all? The possibility isn't as far-fetched as it might seem. The Air Force is currently developing the next-generation air dominance platform, its sixth-generation fighter program. But NGAD faces budget pressures and timeline challenges. Meanwhile, two perfectly good YF-23 airframes sit in museums, representing proven stealth technology and aerodynamic excellence. If the stars aligned, if budgets tightened, if threats escalated, if the need for a specific capability became urgent, America might finally give the Black Widow its day in combat. Let's consider what a YF-23 revival would mean strategically. In the Pacific theater, where distances are vast and tanker support is limited, the YF-23's superior range becomes a decisive advantage. An aircraft that can fly farther means greater operational flexibility, the ability to strike from unexpected directions, and reduce dependence on vulnerable tanker aircraft. The YF-23's all-aspect stealth would be particularly valuable against modern integrated air defense systems. Russian S-400 and S-500 systems, Chinese HQ-9 batteries, these aren't the radars of the 1990s. They're sophisticated, networked, and dangerous. An aircraft with superior stealth from all angles could penetrate these defenses more effectively than current platforms. Consider also the production advantages. The YF-23's basic design is proven. The airframe has been tested. The aerodynamics are understood. While modernization would require significant engineering, it would avoid the decade-plus development cycles that plague new aircraft programs. In a world where threats are evolving rapidly, speed to capability matters. But perhaps the most intriguing aspect is psychological. America's adversaries have spent 3 decades preparing for the F-22 and F-35. Their tactics, their training, their defensive systems, all optimized to counter known threats. What happens when you introduce an aircraft they didn't expect, with capabilities they're not prepared to face? The element of surprise in military aviation is worth more than gold. An adversary that suddenly must account for a different threat profile, a different stealth signature, different range capabilities that creates uncertainty. And uncertainty breeds caution. A resurrected YF-23 wouldn't just be another fighter, it would be a psychological weapon, forcing rivals to question their assumptions and spread their defensive resources across multiple threat scenarios. Now here's the twist. Despite the speculation, the rumors, and the tantalizing possibilities, serious defense analysts remain skeptical about a YF-23 revival. The aircraft's rejection in Japan wasn't just about congressional approval. It was about fundamental limitations of retrofitting 1990s technology for 2020's warfare. Modern fighter aircraft aren't just about airframes and engines. They're about software, sensor fusion, network-centric warfare capabilities, and integration with broader combat systems. The YF-23 was designed in an era before smartphones, before modern computing, before the concept of networked warfare had fully matured. Retrofitting modern avionics into a decades-old airframe design isn't impossible, but it's expensive and time-consuming. You might end up spending as much money and time as developing a new aircraft, while being constrained by design decisions made for different technologies. The F-22 itself, despite being operational, faces challenges integrating modern systems into its 1990s-era architecture. Moreover, the Air Force has clearly stated its vision for NGAD, a family of systems including manned fighters, unmanned loyal wingmen, and advanced weapons, all networked together. Does a resurrected YF-23 fit into that vision? Or would it be a distraction from the real future of air combat? But here's the fascinating part. Ideas never truly die. Design concepts get refined, adapted, and reborn in unexpected ways. The YF-23's innovations in stealth shaping, its approach to minimizing radar cross-section, its efficient use of internal space, all of these continue to influence thinking about future aircraft. So in a very real sense, the YF-23 might already be back. Look at the concept art for sixth-generation fighters from various contractors. Notice the diamond wings, the blended bodies, the emphasis on all aspect stealth. The YF-23's DNA is there, evolved and adapted for new challenges. The Black Widow and Gray Ghost might not fly again, but their children might dominate the skies of 2040. Innovation doesn't die, it transforms, matures, and returns when the time is right. So, what are your thoughts on the YF-23? Drop your answers in the comments below. And if you found this deep dive into aviation history and future warfare fascinating, you know what to do. Hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. Also, check out our previous video on YF-23's return as FAXX as we cover different aspects of the same topic.